Norway in a nutshell is one of the most famous tours in Norway. Trains, boats, fjords. It's meant to be the ultimate highlights reel. But as I sat on yet another train staring out the window, I started to wonder, is this cruise line excursion version of it the best way to experience this iconic tour? After spending an entire day on this tour, I realised something that might make you reconsider booking it. In this video, I'll take you through the experience, what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, whether it's worth your time and money. Because it ain't cheap. So what is Norway in a nutshell? This isn't one single tour, but rather a carefully curated series of transport connections, trains, boats and buses that deliver a highlight reel of Norway's natural beauty. It's perfect if you want a rapid-fire dose of fjords, mountains and waterfalls in one day. Now, if you do this tour outside of the cruise ship version, here's what you can expect. The Bergen Railway, a scenic train journey through lakes, mountains and valleys between Oslo and Bergen. The second railway, the Flam Railway, a steep, dramatic train ride from Myrdal to Flam, featuring waterfalls and jaw-dropping landscapes. A fjords cruise, a boat ride through UNESCO-listed fjords, on the screen, not even going to try and pronounce them, surrounded by towering cliffs and peaceful villages. Similarly, some tag on the optional, again, it's on the screen, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, journey up the Norway's steepest road with incredible views. And then there is Voss, a stop in the adventure sports hub, but more on that later. Now this sounds absolutely incredible, and Norway in a nutshell, as that sequence of travel options in a day, it's extremely popular. So let's see how the Prima version of this tour stacks up. But first, we have to dock in Bergen. So sailing into Bergen was wet. No surprises there. This is one of the rainiest places in Europe. If you're lucky enough to get a dry day, consider it a blessing. Most visitors explore the charming Hamar, take the vernacular up Mount Fløyen, or ride the cable car to Mount Ulriken. All stunning views. It's definitely a fantastic option. If you want to get off in Bergen and do nothing but wander around, it's perfectly valid. But I didn't see any of that because I was about to spend my entire day on Norway in the briefest of nutshells, on an excursion provided by NCL. So, cruise lines handle excursions differently. On this cruise, all tours assembled in the ship's theatre before disembarking as a group. Early morning wake up, check. Sticker to identify my bus, check, because multiple buses may be on the same tour. A room full of half-awake passengers, and sometimes confused passengers. Absolutely. If you're lucky, a humorous person from the excursion team will be marshalling everyone, which makes things a bit fun and eventful. If you get one of the more dry, humorless people, it's a bit of a trial. Everything on this cruise was well organised, I have to say. You hear sometimes that the excursion teams muck things up and things get really challenging, but on Prima, on this tour, it was like a military operation. It was always well organised. So it wasn't long before we were on our coach and we were off to Voss. The first leg of the journey was a coach ride to Voss. Now I should have timed this segment, but at the time I didn't really understand how much time I would spend on coaches and trains, so I didn't feel the need to. Let's just say you will spend the majority of this tour looking out a window. If you're not on the coach, you're on the Bergen line. If you're not on either of those, you're on the Flam Railway. The only time you're not staring out a window is when you're transferring between transports or eating lunch. That said, the scenery is stunning. Norway's landscape is undeniably cinematic and the tour guide provided interesting commentary. But I will be honest, I took a nap on the final coach ride back, which was extended as there was an accident on one of the many narrow two-lane roads you'll take on this tour. Now this excursion was a mixture of FOMO and sometimes confusion, right? Especially in Voss. Voss is an adventure sports hub where people go paragliding, kayaking and mountain biking. But on this tour, you step off the bus and then onto a train. This is the first moment you realise this tour is designed to give you extreme FOMO. To make things worse, half the group panicked at the train station. Even though the guide explained everything perfectly fine, a wave of anxiety swept through the crowd, making some people question if they were on the right train. It was like the wisdom of crowds in reverse. As soon as one person worried, it just spread throughout the group and everyone worried, and within minutes everyone was sure that the tour was badly organised and the tour guide wasn't informing them what was going on, when in truth the tour guide was being very clear. If you've used European trains before, you'll be fine. If not, brace yourself for some confusion as people move between the travel options. Now the Bergen line is considered one of Europe's most scenic train journeys. But this tour only includes a short section between Voss and Myrdal. The landscape, definitely beautiful. The train itself is nice and comfortable, but it's a regular transport train, right? It's not a special scenic train or anything like that. But if you're taking other scenic trains, or even just the general trains around Switzerland's Jungfrau region, you might find yourself thinking, this is nice, but I have seen more dramatic versions of it. Then you arrive at a train station and you swap from one platform for another in Myrdal to go on the Flam Railway. Now, the tour guide conspiratorially told me, sit on the right side. Turns out she had no idea. It's wrong. If you're heading from Myrdal to Flam, sit on the left-hand side. But honestly, you will get to see everything. I wouldn't say my journey down the mountain on the Flam Railway was ruined by sitting on the wrong side, but if you're going down to Flam, sit on the left. Now the ride is spectacular, steep gradients, cascading waterfalls and charming mountain scenery. But again, how you experience this depends on what you've seen before. Now, if this is your first mountain train, it will blow your mind. Definitely worth it. If it's not, I don't believe it stands out as something super unique. As an example, the views I experienced every day getting backwards and forwards to my hotel and around the Jungfrau region were equal if not better. Look, the Flam Railway is the highlight of this tour for sure. It is worth doing. It was something I wanted to check off my list. I was underwhelmed because of the frenetic nature of the tour and the fact I'd seen many similar alternatives, but the Flam Railway is worth doing 100%. I had hoped we would get to explore Flam, but no. The tour continued as it had set out. We were rushed off the Flam railway station, which was incredibly crowded because an MSC ship was in at the same time, and back on the coach. So was it worth it? Yes. But I think I'd give a few caveats to help you figure out whether you'd be happy. I enjoyed Norway in a nutshell, but in an intellectual, comparative way. It's my social thinking introvert thing kicking in, right? Measuring it against other places I've been. If you're new to scenic train travel, you will be amazed, right? Both train journeys offer great scenery, especially the Flam Railway. But if you've experienced similar landscapes before, it's nice but not life-changing and very expensive and very rushed. This version of the tour is a streamlined version of an already streamlined experience. A multi-day version would be far better. I'd even go as far to say it's stretching it to call it Norway in a nutshell, and it's more an interesting way to get to the Flam Railway from Bergen. That's how I would see the tour. It is a Flam Railway tour with all the effort to get there and back that just happens to cover an element or two of Norway in a nutshell. If it is Norway in a nutshell, you'd rather it be a coconut than a peanut, right? This feels like a fast-moving peanut and it's not really a full feasting coconut. And I've probably tortured that analogy, so I'll stop. You don't get to do the fjords cruise, you don't get to do, spend time in Voss or Flam, you don't get to do Norway's highest road. It just feels very in brief. So should you do the tour? It's expensive, you spend your time constantly in motion, it misses off the key elements you'd normally get on a Norway in a nutshell itinerary, it will be fully booked weeks before your cruise. I mean, I was lucky as a solo traveller to get on it despite being 8th in a waiting list. If you're thinking of doing it, look at it more like a way to do the Flam Railway from Bergen. That's the way I would view it. And then assess whether you think it's worth the money. If you've done the Flam Railway, I'd definitely not bother. Oh, and fun fact, speaking with the dock staff, I joked that our group was probably the one that were always coming in back to the ship last. They laughed and said yes. As a result, I'd not recommend doing this tour independently. It is crazily long, involves a lot of 2-lane narrow roads which sometimes have accidents on them, and you just cannot predict when you're going to get back. In the meantime, if you want to know what I thought of the ship I took this excursion from, the Norwegian Prima, you can check out this video on the screen right now.